Welcome to the Total Soccer Show Weekend Review. Newcastle finally ended their long trophy drought, putting Liverpool to the sword in their Wembley bout. Dan Burn headed home and the underdog came through. It was a win for the neutral and for sports washing too. In the Premier League, Arsenal edged closer to the top. Man City's season continues to be a flop. Big Ange crept closer towards the chop and Man United pushed Leicester further towards the drop. We had a huge top-of-the-table clash in Spain as Barcelona dealt Atletico Madrid another dose of pain. In Italy, Inter improved their Scudetto chances as Atalanta and Napoli failed to make advances. And in Germany, Bayer Leverkusen came back and scored 4 as Bayern Munich faltered once more. And in MLS, all is swell as Leo Messi got a goal in the ATL. My name's Ryan Bailey. Joining me today, my friend Taylor Rocco. Hello, Taylor.
Hello, Ryan Bailey. Sports washing, more or less still undefeated. Is that correct? I feel like I have that record correct.
Yeah, I mean it's on the waiver in Manchester, arguably, but otherwise it's doing well. It's strong. Yeah.
Yeah. For as much effort as we've put into combating sports washing, it feels like it's still doing pretty okay on its own.
Yeah. PSG, likable team. Newcastle, yay for them. Yeah, it's happening.
Dissident journalists, a problem. No, just me. All right. I guess it's worked too well. My bad.
Just you and a few others. Graham Ruffins here. Hello, Graham.
Hello, Ryan Bailey. How are you? Did you have fun at your... I've been meaning to ask you this since you dropped into our chat over the weekend. Did you have fun at your Villa knees up over the weekend? Do you have a John McGinn tattoo? No.
So I was at a St Patrick's Day themed bar this weekend, and it's an Aston Villa bar because Charlotte, of course, is full of Aston Villa fans. The owner of this bar loves Aston Villa. Basically, does everything Aston Villa themed. I've said Aston Villa a lot of claret and blue in that place. It was fun, Graham. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, see, I envisage a place where they're giving out John McGinn tattoos for free for anyone who wants them. So I'm planning on visiting at some point in the future to add to my collection of John McGinn tattoos, of course.
There we go. Fantastic stuff. Yeah, they're getting some Villa legends coming over soon for a game as well. More on that if they choose to sponsor Total Soccer Show. Hi, Joe. Joe Lowry's here.
Hey, hello. Taylor wants to talk, but I'm going to talk anyway. First of all, Graham wants someone to ask him about his kit because it's a great kit. And so, Graham, I'm going to ask you about your kit. What is your kit, Graham?
It's an Ajax limited edition shirt for their 125th birthday, and it's up there as one of the best shirts that I've ever bought. It is. When it arrived this morning, I knew it was going to be good. When I opened it, oh, this is special, this kit. It's sensational. I put it on my Instagram, and I've had like 20 people message me about it, so I think Ajax are going to sell a few of these. Not just to me as well. I've bought another 10.
Wow. It's
a great shirt.
It's a lovely shirt, Graham. It's got the triple X, the Amsterdam triple X on the front rather than the crest. Joe, don't ask why Amsterdam has a triple X. You don't want to know. It's fine.
Roger that. I was just wondering over here if Graham had any more room on his backside for another John McGinn tattoo. Like, I know you got to find room somewhere. Are you going to have to go to a different body part? Where are we at on that?
Well, see, I do have the tattoo of John McGinn's backside on my backside.
Right.
Of course. So maybe I'm just going to have his different body parts all over my body until eventually I'm like a caricature of John McGinn.
Nice.
Wow. I look forward to that. Very good indeed.
Taylor, the weird start to the show, y'all.
All right, well, let's move on then. One more thing before we get to the main bulk of the show. Patreon.com/Total Soccer Show is the very best way to support this here endeavour. Bonus episodes of the podcast, including Weekend Review Extra, everything we don't squeeze into this show here. From a massive weekend of soccer, we've got bonus video content, including Taylor with some amorous frogs in his yard.
They're still going, man. They're still going. They went all night. They're still going today. It's a rowdy time in the backwoods.
I haven't seen this video yet.
This was not a euphemism.
It's not French people.
No, it is spring peeper season here in Virginia, which means spring has sprung, and the frogs have also sprung. Yes, it is frog mating season in our backwoods, and it gets loud, and it gets rowdy, and it leads to my daughter asking a lot of questions, like, why are those two frogs wrestling? And I have to try to explain that, because they're trying to do it professionally, that's why.
Yeah. Taylor, you did say a second ago this was a weird start to the podcast.
Yeah.
You've done nothing to,
We've pushed the ball upfield.
I don't believe I'm the one who brought up the frog mating season. Thank you very much. I'm still confused.
No, you just filmed a video about it and published it.
I published it, yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. There we go.
Yay. Gotta do something. I also almost accidentally erroneously selected the must pay for this option, which would have been even better if that were our first pay to view release was that particular video. I feel like it would have been on brand for us.
Very nice. Excellent stuff. You can see that and much more, and access to our Discord as well, patreon.com/Total Soccer Show. And as a reminder, if you want to see Graham's fabulous kit, we're on YouTube. Check us out. Link in the show notes.
So IX is more about the Triple X franchise than Fast and Furious? Is that what the 3Xs are about? Is that what I'm understanding at this point?
Yeah, they're about Triple X in a sense. Yeah, if you've been to Amsterdam, which is what Ryan was getting.
That's right. They're both in the Vin Diesel-averse. Yeah, we're trying to get to here.
Does the back of the shirt say Triple X2 State of the Union?
That's right.
Okay, cool.
That's right.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Is that a real film title?
You're darn right it is, starring Ice Cube, the second one.
Of course.
All right. I'm going to attempt another course correction here. League Cup final, everybody. Let's talk about that. Liverpool 1, Newcastle 2. The first domestic trophy for Newcastle since 1955. If you watched on CBS, you will have heard Clive Tilsley say that 26,000 times. But it's a very impressive feat indeed. First trophy in 56 years since winning the Intercities Fairs Cup. Joe, big Intercities Fairs Cup fan, right?
I'm just throwing for a loop because I watched last year's League's Cup final instead of this year's League Cup final, and I'm just so confused at this point.
Okay. Well, we'll try and keep up with this one. There's a lot of leagues and Leagues Cup.
There are.
But this is the League Cup final. The Geordies in control of this one for most of the game. Dan Burn, the aforementioned, with a towering header on the week of his first England call-up as well. Alexander Isak making it 2. Federico Chiesa got one back when Liverpool were throwing everything in the kitchen sink at it to try and get something late on in this game. But another great moment for Newcastle under Eddie Howe here. Probably, Graham, better than the win over PSG in the Champions League, that sort of iconic St. James's Park night they had. Goodness me, 2023, was it that long ago? But a very, very good weekend for Newcastle United, Graham.
Yeah, absolutely. This was a moment of culmination for this entire project. And obviously the story now will be, can they kick on? Can they make this a regular thing? Can they at some point in the future challenge for a Premier League title, although they're quite far off that level. But there was chat after this game. You know how when there's a big result or a big goal and people will say, Eddie Howe or Dan Burn, where do you want your statue? With Newcastle United, that's how special this moment was that is not actually out of the question that maybe there's an Eddie Howe statue at a new stadium if they build a new stadium in the future. This was something special. It had been building for a few days. Newcastle fans, I don't know if you guys saw, took over London for not just Sunday, but for Saturday as well. And then this morning as well, the fans heading back up north. You can see what this means to them. And obviously you have to consider the sports washing aspect of things, as you led us in with, Ryan. But speaking for myself, I can separate that from my appreciation of a fan base and what it means to so many people. And I was delighted to see Newcastle get it done yesterday. And all their celebrity fans, I very much enjoyed CBS trying to explain to an American audience who Ant and Dec are and what they are. I'm not entirely sure there's an American equivalent. We were talking about this before we went on air. They're British TV personalities, basically. But also Alan Shearer and
is what the commentator jokes about.
They've got some defining features. They are very short. They're cheeky chappies, and they're Newcastle fans. That's basically their identity.
Isn't only one of them short? Isn't only Dec?
No,
short?
They're both. I mean, Dec's the shortest, but Ant is also like, he's like Messi height, I would imagine. But I was pleased to see Newcastle get it done and seeing like Alan Shearer, who you consider everything that he did for that club. He's probably the biggest legend in that club's history. Never won a trophy for Newcastle, so to see him celebrating in the stands,
Steve relegated him as manager once, Graham. There was that.
We don't talk about that. Okay. We don't talk about that. That was Mike Ashley.
That celebration was awesome. That was a great moment. He looked like a 12-year-old boy celebrating his boyhood club, which he was. And it was lovely to see the supporters for Newcastle getting that moment, getting that like afternoon of enjoyment, because it was an afternoon to be enjoyed if you were a Newcastle supporter, less so Liverpool. I also enjoyed, Graham, before they took over London, the Newcastle supporters, there was a video of them passing the Sunderland bus on their way down to London, and I think Sunderland were on their way to lose 3-0 at Coventry City. Different fates for those two organizations.
Yeah, to Frank Lampard's Coventry City as well.
Well, that's just
really rubbing it in.
I think you meant to say Haji Wright's Coventry City, Graham, but we'll let that slide. This really was an impressive performance for Newcastle. Taylor, you're talking about an afternoon to be enjoyed. It really genuinely was, where they were the better team for the entirety of this game. They controlled so much of what happened, which is not to say that they dominated the ball all the time in this game. Liverpool, at the end of the day, even in the first half, had the vast majority of possession. Maybe vast is a bit extreme, but Liverpool had long spells.
66% and like triple or double, at least double the number of passes, I would say you're dead on with that number. Yeah.
Yeah, 56. There it is. 56 in the first half. I knew it was tighter in the first half. Like, that is, you're right. I guess I'm right. You're right. Go me. I don't know.
Hey.
Newcastle didn't dominate the ball in this game, and they didn't have to. They had a very, I think, pragmatic and an excellent game plan in this game of, yes, there was a bit of high pressing, but they were not afraid to drop into a really compact 4-5-1 block with really tight, congested midfield marking. And Joelinton, my namesake, was phenomenal in this game. He is everywhere sort of all at the same time, and he really muted Szoboszlai's impact in the midfield for Liverpool, who never really found simple ball progression options in their more sustained possession moments. And then you move past that and you move into how physically dominant Newcastle were for long parts of this game, where Joelinton comes up yet again, where he's marking Szoboszlai, and Michael Cox had a good piece about this for The Athletic. He's somehow marking Szoboszlai on the left side of central midfield and then also acting as the spare man to go and shut down other attacks in midfield. He was everywhere all at once. And that sort of defined Newcastle's general approach in this game. And Arne Slot talked about this after the game. He said, quote, Newcastle were taller, stronger in duels, and I think that's a special look at Dan Burn, who, by the way, you can't make a statue out of Dan Burn because I think that might bankrupt even Saudi Arabia with the amount of material you need there. But Slot went on to say, both goals come from that. We have to be better with the ball, which they weren't very good in this game on the ball. But man, Newcastle, it felt like in every phase had the edge in this match, which is, even against a not quite full-strength Liverpool team, is not super easy to do.
Yeah, you could tell from early on that Newcastle were wired into this game. And it was in contrast to how Newcastle played. Remember, they made a Carabao Cup final a couple of years ago against Manchester United. And they were lethargic. And Eddie Howe actually spoke quite openly about this before the game. And he admitted that they were a little bit overwhelmed by the expectation, by the number of fans coming down to that game. And so he tried to take as much as possible the emotion out of this. So I don't think Newcastle stayed in London for this game. I think they travelled to it like they would a normal game. They tried to treat it as a normal match. And whether it was that factor, whether it was Liverpool being a little bit fatigued after the PSG game, after going 120 minutes during the week, maybe that didn't matter. But ultimately, Newcastle looked ready for everything in this game. They were sharp to everything. They were winning second balls. Joelinton was celebrating big tackles from like the 15th minute on. He did it 3 times in the game. And Newcastle, they just had an intensity that Liverpool couldn't match. And it's unusual to see a Liverpool team be overwhelmed in that way.
And Slot was asked about that after the match, and I do think was kind of in a really unenviable position, because you don't want to be overly critical. You don't want to say, yeah, we're all really exhausted and the season's catching up to us, because then the story becomes, is the title race back open? Are their title ambitions in doubt? But I think he did sort of speak to that, like, Newcastle controlled the style of play, that they were much more direct. We couldn't press them because they were just going long. And I understand that defense at the same time. Isn't that what they were kind of always going to do, is be direct? And I think if you can't limit that, if you can't find a way to deal with that, then you're always going to come away with not the result you want. But I think that fatigue is a huge part of this, which is the thing that Slot, I think, tried to maybe downplay a little bit. But 10 of the 11 starters in this game started both games against PSG. They lost, I think, the majority of their duels. They only won 32% in the air. They had the majority of possession, but weren't able to really do very much. I think their first shot isn't until around the hour mark, so they're not creating very much. And it just felt like a tired Liverpool team, who I do think probably are still thinking a little bit about this past week and getting knocked out of the Champions League. And certainly I don't have any experience with that or know what that would be like, but I just have to assume when you lose on penalties, a tie that you could have won, you lose it at home. For a minute there, you're competing on multiple fronts, and it feels like you could win a bunch of different silverware and be an iconic team, and who knows what's going to happen next. There's just going to be a little bit of wind taken out of your sails, and I think that is understandable. But I think then in a cup final, when you have the opposite number coming at this with a focus and intensity that you cannot match, you're always going to be in trouble.
Yeah, and I think there's a little bit of discussion. There's not so much that Slot could have done between the PSG and the PSG game and this game, because obviously he wants his strongest team for both matches. I did see a few Liverpool fans just question before those couple games whether he had rotated enough. You look at that Southampton game that they played, where the first half was really lethargic, and it's basically been since that FA Cup defeat to Plymouth Argyle, where he did heavily rotate and Liverpool paid for it, so maybe he got spooked a little bit by that game. But it has essentially been the same 14 players for the last like 5 to 6 weeks in 2025. So I don't know, maybe he might have been able to do a little bit more to plan ahead into this period where Liverpool are going to have these big games on a weekly basis. But it was still really stark to see how how ineffective they were in the attack. They barely had a sniff in an attacking sense for this game. Their first shot was in stoppage time at the end of the first half. They didn't have a single touch in the Newcastle box for 41 minutes of this game. Salah was uninvolved throughout the game. He had 23 touches in the whole match, didn't have a single shot, and some of that was down to how Newcastle were overpowering Liverpool in the middle of the pitch, which was then preventing them from getting balls into the forward line. That was forcing them to... You said that Taylor, said Newcastle were going long. I think Liverpool a lot of this match were going long, which maybe wasn't their plan. I can't imagine it was their plan, because it basically meant they had Salah, Jota and Diaz fighting in the air against a group of giants led by Dan Burn himself. And so Newcastle did a really good job of holding them at arm's length.
I think Slot was asked a lot of leading questions, and then you remove the leading question, and in a vacuum, his questions seem odd. Because I'm going to guess he was asked, was the press not effective today? Why couldn't the press do more against Newcastle? And I think his answer was basically because they weren't trying to play out, so the press isn't going to accomplish much. I did appreciate some of his explanations of things because it did clarify obvious questions that I had prior to this recording, like, why would you have Alexis McAllister marking Dan Burn? That feels like a mismatch. That doesn't make much sense. And Slot, to his credit, outlined it pretty well, which is basically they play a hybrid zone. They put their big guys in the box to win anything that comes in the air, and they are okay with any headers from distance because chances are you're away from goal, you're running away from goal. I think he said 99 times out of 100 that ball isn't getting headed in the back of the net. He's just never seen a header hit from that distance with that amount of power. And credit to Dan Burn for the finish. So it did make some sense. I do think Alexis McAllister showed the fatigue maybe more than some other Liverpool players. I felt like he was getting knocked around and getting knocked out of sorts more often and more regularly. When he would get knocked down, I just saw him complaining a bit more. I saw him being slow to get back up. Even there's a moment in the 11th minute, it was one of my favorite moments of the game. It was akin to when you come to a four-way stop and you wait your turn and the person who's supposed to go right before you takes too long to go, and how quickly you will shift, or at least I will shift because I'm a psycho, from, hey, it's your turn, to go! And it was Szoboszlai is there trying to help McAllister get back up. McAllister's sitting there talking to the ref, and Szoboszlai is bent over with both hands down. Like, hey, man, I'm here. Waits 5 seconds, and then just walks away with his hands in the air and is clearly, venting out loud to no one about his frustration for McAllister not taking his hand back up. But I think that was representative, less so the four-way stop thing and more so the frustration and the getting knocked around aspect of Liverpool's game.
Can I just go back to the corner kick thing very quickly? Because I found that really interesting, because there was a warning. Liverpool had a warning, 5 minutes before, where Newcastle set up in exactly the same way. Liverpool set up in exactly the same way. I actually can't really remember what happens from the corner kick, but it's maybe a little bit of a scramble. Dan Burn gets that first contact. And basically the way Newcastle were set up was really clever, because they recognised... the way that they set up, it took Van Dijk and Konate out of the game, because they are marking zonally in the 6-yard box. So you have separation between Dan Burn and them. You position him further out, so he's always getting first contact. But to your point, Taylor, about McAllister, it confused me why... Liverpool don't have a player who's the height of Dan Burn. Nobody does. But maybe you put Quansah on him, or you put Gravenberch is taller than Alexis McAllister, right? You maybe put someone who can at least get close to him, put him off, or do something. And so that was the confusing thing about that Liverpool defence.
McAllister on Jota's shoulders with a trench coat.
With a trench coat, yeah. That would work.
Vincent Altman style. I like it. Very good. This obviously, it's an interesting time for Liverpool. When you think of sort of the great Premier League teams that they made a run towards the end of the season, this is the time when they get hot. And it's kind of not working out that way for Liverpool at the moment, momentum-wise, as you mentioned, Taylor, going from the catbird seat of 3 trophies to just 1. And we'll see how that pans out. I'm sure they'll be fine in the Premier League.
Yeah, I mean, it is a weird thing to think about a season in which they're likely going to win the Premier League as being you can't call that a disappointment with how long they waited to win one Premier League under multiple managers and ultimately doing it under Jurgen Klopp. I mean, it's still a success, and I honestly think there is still a ton of credit to Slot for picking up the rebuild and continuing it, but also getting everybody kind of on side really quickly. There haven't been major dust-ups. There haven't been major fallings out. Sort of. I mean, there is the idea, this game kind of highlights it. What will they do next season without Trent Alexander-Arnold, who misses due to injury, but we still don't know what's going to happen with his contract. It feels increasingly likely that maybe he's playing for a team named Real Madrid than Liverpool next season. And I think in his absence, you don't have somebody who can kind of play those dangerous passes in behind. You don't have the connection with Mohamed Salah. And so I think it's a credit to Liverpool that they have done what they've done and been as consistently successful as they have been this campaign. I think it also shows that they're not nearly as deep as maybe I thought they might be heading into this season. And I think there maybe explains why there wasn't as much rotation from Slot ahead of these games. I think Graham's point is valid that you still want to win both Champions League games. You want to win some silverware. I still think there could have been more rotation along the way, and then maybe you do have fewer injured players heading into this game.
Yeah, and not that anybody is disagreeing with this, but I do just want to bookmark this or have this bookmark so we can come back to it at the end of the season when Liverpool do win the title, because they're going to win the title. And we think, oh, what... how successful really was this season? It feels like there's some
huge success.
It's a massive success. It's an absolutely massive success. And this game, nor the Champions League flop to PSG, who are a very, very good team, and super, just so likable. It's just wild, how likable they are. This is an unequivocal success for Liverpool and should be remembered as such. And we'll have all of that, and I think all of us, it seems like, are on the same page with that. But it is easy to get caught up in the short-termism of, well, what have you done for me lately? And Liverpool haven't done a whole lot for anybody lately, but that's because they were so darn good for the first, two-thirds of the season that it just doesn't matter. Like, this is such a smash hit of a season from Liverpool when nobody really believed in them in the way that they're performing right now or have for most of this season. So this won't detract from that, I don't think, or at least it shouldn't in any real way.
There you go, yeah. They front-loaded their investment in the season, Joe.
That's
they
right.
Roth IRA'd it, if I've used the correct investment analogy there. I don't think I have. But just to go once more, congratulate Newcastle United. Eddie Howe, I think this feels like there might be a re-evaluation of Eddie Howe after this one, the first English manager to win either the FA Cup or the League Cup since Harry Redknapp won in 2008 with Portsmouth. There was...
Wow.
Yeah,
that's
right?
quite something.
That's quite something. But there was a period of time, I think, with Newcastle where they thought, like, what's the next plan for the next manager? But maybe that conversation is pushed down the line, given this trophy success. We'll see about that. Obviously, some great storylines with this one. Dan Burn, we've mentioned, 29 years old when he made his debut for his local club, Newcastle. He was playing in non-league. He was rejected by Newcastle, 11 years old. He lost a finger, so... less expense on that statue, I suppose, Joe, and that spends only 9 fingers needed for that one. Sorry, that was a bad joke. My favourite moment, I think, of the post-match was Bruno Guimaraes in tears being interviewed on Sky Television. It was one of the best days of my life, he said. They deserve it. For them, this is like the World Cup. He's talking about the fans behind him. People who've died, people who've grown up and they've not seen Newcastle as champions, sort of talking about 3 generations of Newcastle fans, basically, who haven't seen this team win anything. So it was tremendous for them. And as he was saying this, Local Hero was playing in the background. If you've not seen the movie Local Hero with the music done by Mark Knopfler, I suggest, listener, you reevaluate that as well, because that was a wonderful moment too. Great day for soccer.
I'm going to say you're in the minority of knowing that reference. Graham?
I know the song very well. I have never seen the movie.
But Ryan, I love the positive spotlighting there, and I would echo it with Dan Burn, who I believe gets his first England call-up ever at the age of 32. Yep. That's not bad. You've got 3 Newcastle players in Thomas Tuchel's first England squad. It's his first one, right? So I think that is commendable and exciting from a Newcastle perspective, and I think this result certainly is as well. And I think sometimes League Cups can feel like, or the League Cup can feel like, it's a sideshow. Great. We won it in February or March, and who knows what's going to happen. With Newcastle, it does feel like a thing that is very valuable and very important for winning some silverware, but also does feel like a marker of things to come. I think we'll see continued investment. I think we'll see the strong squad continue to get stronger. But I think, to the point about Bruno Guimaraes and how much this meant to him, I think there is a collective understanding of how much this club means to the local population. And I think those players, when you get that type of buy-in, they can kick on to another level. So I'm excited to see what comes next with Newcastle. Credit to them and their supporters, even if I don't always love their ownership.
Hooray, the lads, indeed. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about the Premier League, the rest of Europe, MLS. Join us then. Total Soccer Show, welcome back to the weekend review. Let's turn our attention to that there. Premier League, Arsenal with a 1-0 win over Chelsea. Mikel Merino, of course, with the goal, putting Arsenal just to 12 points behind the league leaders, Liverpool. A set-piece corner routine in this one as well. Chelsea were without Kai Havertz and Cole Palmer, Cole Palmer also out for England duty. What do we make of this one, Graham? Arsenal still look organised and functional, but I don't know, maybe just obviously don't create enough up top is the issue.
This was a real struggle of a match, to be honest, that pretty accurately showed where both of these teams are at the moment. I saw someone describe it as the sideways versus the bland. I couldn't tell which team was which out of that description because it kind of described both of them. I think Arsenal were probably the sideways because that's what I was saying about them last week. Their build-up play is pretty slow, don't take as many risks as I would personally like them to, but they did just about enough to win this match. They were the more proactive team out of the two. Gabriel Martinelli back in the lineup, which is a boost for them just to have any sort of recognised forward in that forward line. He was actually on the right rather than his usual position on the left. Maybe didn't have the most productive game, and you could see towards the end that he is very much still building up match fitness because he became quite leggy. But just for the sake of having better balance in the forward line, this was an improvement for Arsenal. They've missed that directness. Martinelli offers that. You mentioned, Ryan, the winner comes from a set piece, which is the Arsenal thing. But actually, recently, hasn't been the Arsenal thing. This was their first corner kick goal in their last 53 attempts. So they haven't been as effective at them recently. I think Saka being injured has probably been a big factor in that, because for all the orchestration in the middle, you still need someone who can put the ball in the perfect area, certainly from his side, and Saka's been injured. But they were making an effort to get on top of Robert Sanchez at every opportunity because they know that he is garbage.
As a goalkeeper. At least one good save I remember in this game, if I remember.
Oh, well done. What about all the other occasions when he tried to gift the goal to Arsenal? His fundamentals, his goalkeeping fundamentals are just really weird. I'm not actually convinced he's that good at distribution out from the back, so they need a replacement for him. But yeah, just to flip it to Chelsea very quickly, their season is really sort of fizzling out a bit, and it reminds me a bit of how Leicester City last season under Enzo Maresca kind of limped over the line and won promotion back to the Premier League, and they're just so lifeless in the attack at the moment. No Cole Palmer for this game, but this has been a trend even when he has been in the team. And the way that they set up in this game, it was Enzo Fernandez as the number 10 and Cuckoo on the left, Sancho on the right, Pedro Neto through the middle, but they were just never able to feed the ball into the forward line to have any sort of creativity or goal threat. Their best chance in this game was a Cucurella shot that David Raya almost let squeeze through him. It should have been an even save for David Raya. I'm not sure what was going on with the goalkeepers in this game. But yeah, Chelsea are really struggling. Their XG was 0.35 in this game, which is their lowest of the entire season. So they've got some things to sort out.
Chelsea struggling in fourth, 1 point above Man City, just to put a finer point on that one. A few more Premier League games to run through. Man City 2, Brighton 2. Brighton twice equalising in this one against the defending champions. Erling Haaland with his 84th Premier League goal. The first player in Premier League history to reach 100 goal involvements in fewer than 100 appearances. 94 games, 84 goals, 16 assists for him. Marmoush's goal was a rocket in that one as well. Very good indeed. Fulham getting a 2-0 win over Tottenham. Beating them at home for the second season in a row, did Fulham there. Rodrigo Muniz and Ryan Sessegnon, former Spurs star, with a great goal against his own club. They're refusing to celebrate, as is the tradition these days. Spurs have lost 15 of their 29 games, by the way. Only Wolves, outside the relegation zone, have lost more than that. That doesn't seem like a viable way of doing things. Anyway, Ipswich 2, Nottingham Forest 4. Big win for Forest there and their Champions League aspirations. We had to come down from the League Cup to see, well, maybe not come down, that's insulting to Man United, but they got a 3-0 win over Leicester in their 10th game against Leicester in the last month, from what I can recall. Rasmus Højlund ending his 21-game goal drought in this one. Man United 4 games undefeated in all competitions. Leicester have lost their last 7 in a row, 2 of them against Man United.
Yeah, and haven't scored in that period, which is a new Premier League record. So congratulations to them and Ruud van Nistelrooy.
Not great. Also didn't know at least one of the subs for Man United, Toby Collier, I think is a new boy coming onto the field as well.
Oh, he's had a bit of game time, I think, this season. I was just about to, while we're talking about Man United new boys, I was just about to message Taylor saying that Aidan Heaven, who was a signing who came in January and sort of flew under the radar, he's been legit in the last few games. He's looked great. And then just as I was about to message Taylor, he got injured and it looks like his season is over. So the curse is real.
I hope you're proud of yourself, Graham. Thanks for making that happen.
I am.
Yeah, that was you. Anyway, one more game to mention. Wolves with a 2-1 win over Southampton. Southampton, the 4th side in English top-flight history to lose 9 consecutive home games in the same season. They're still on 9 points. They can be relegated as early as April 6th. Oh boy, could be worse, Leicester. All right, let's go to Spain, shall we? A big one at the top of La Liga. A rough week for Atletico Madrid as well. Atleti 2, Barcelona 4. Barcelona were 2-0 down in the 70th minute in this one at the Metropolitano, and they still claimed the win. Lamine Yamal and Ferran Torres with stoppage time goals in this one. Yamal's a big old deflection, to be fair. But Joe, what a result here for Barcelona.
I'm sorry, are we going to skip over Ryan's Scooby-Doo read of Barcelona? Because that's my favorite bit of broadcasting from the day. You said that like we had just unveiled Barcelona as the masked monster in a Scooby-Doo episode.
And I would have gotten away with it.
Exactly.
Taylor's.
Well played. All the way around. That is well played. This was not a super well-played game from Barcelona. I think it's telling about the makeup of this team that, Ryan, you could have led me in with almost anything about Barcelona were fill in the blank down, or Barcelona were playing with fill in the blank number of men, and it all would have felt right for listener if they hadn't seen this game. This was another Barcelona Atletico Madrid wild match all the way around. Atleti were, in so many respects, nailed on with their game plan in this game. I thought they had a really, really good first half. I thought they had a good first 70 or so minutes of this match in general. Barcelona started to find some looks in the second half, but most of those looks, as you can tell by the fact that they scored all 4 goals after the 70th minute, came late on in this game. Atletico Madrid did exactly what we all thought they would do. They sat deep, they absorbed pressure, and what was really, to my eye, like this 5-3-2 block with Griezmann and Alvarez up top looking to get out and get released on the break and exploit some of the space in behind Barcelona. And Atletico Madrid, to their credit, held up really, really well for a huge chunk of this game. Barcelona, though, brute forced their way through, which is a credit to them and a reminder of just how much talent they have in this team. Even when Inigo Martinez allows, basically it is him sort of allowing that second goal that Atletico Madrid score at Sorloth, who comes off the bench in this game. He is like a step deeper than everybody else on that offside trap and gets burned. He then comes back a couple minutes later and just strolls upfield and picks out the ball to Lewandowski, who then does classic Robert Lewandowski stuff and scores. And then it's Ferran Torres who scores. And then it's a deflection. And this is where I start to feel a bit for Atletico Madrid on that Lamine Yamal goal, because it's not a great chance. It's a hopeful shot that takes a wicked deflection, and Oblak is just caught going the other way, and it's not his fault. It's a brutal turn of events for Atletico Madrid, but also a real reminder of just how stacked this Barcelona team is and how little time they need to turn a game on its head.
Yeah, I don't really have a great explanation for what happened in the final 20 minutes of this game. I guess fatigue, we mentioned fatigue with Liverpool. Atleti also played 120 minutes during the week in the Champions League, so maybe they just fell off the cliff edge after a point in this match. But it felt like it got
to that, Graham. Yeah.
That's what happened. What also happened was Barcelona leaned into the chaos, which is where they do their best work. They brought in Ferran Torres, which I thought made a bit of a difference. That gave them another player around Lewandowski at the head of their attacking line. They seemed to play more crosses into the box in this period. They went with them with numbers, and then when it went to 2-2, Atleti started to stretch their play, and that then created even more space for Barcelona. There's actually a great chance for Sorloth at 2-2 where he completely skews like this toe poke wide of the post. So maybe Atleti could have won this game after being pegged back. But it was a manic finish to the game, and it's in those sort of circumstances that Barcelona do their best work, and they should make these two teams play every single week, because this has been the most reliably entertaining and exhilarating fixture this season. The last game was 4-4. There was a late winner for Atleti in the Camp Nou as well in the league games. So something about these two teams just creates drama.
Yeah, definitely. I know. There's a block in my head that lets me allocate Atletico Madrid to the entertainment column, the non-sicko entertainment, I suppose. But they've very much proved that wrong with this fixture as well. Joe, in my notes, I've just got Barcelona. This team.
I love this team. I mean, I kind of did that whole thing just a minute ago, because it feels like it just doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter what happens. Yeah. Like, I don't know, maybe this is a foolish thing to say when Real Madrid are hot on the tails of Barcelona. Barcelona have a game in hand, but both teams are level on points right now. It just sort of feels to me like this Barcelona team is destined to win the title this year, and might even be destined to win more than that. They're just a really, really good, weird team all the way around. They are unique defensively, which we've talked about time and time again. But the attack, to go back to it in this match, because the margins were so fine, to have the breadth of quality that they have in that front line. Rafinha is having an amazing season and comes up big in the latter stages of this game. Lewandowski is still a phenomenal goal scorer. And then you look at Yamal, who is the best player on this entire team, maybe outside of Pedri. I guess they do very different things, but probably is the most important player to this team and their ability to score goals and create chances in the final third. It continues to go under the radar just how absurdly good he is, because I think we've all maybe gone a bit numb to it at this point, just because he's been so young for so long and so good for so long that we feel like, all right, well, we just know what to expect. The dude is unbelievably good, and this was not his best game across the board, but this was not Barcelona's best game across the board. And you know what? It just did not matter one bit.
It made me really want to go see a big Atletico Madrid game at the Metropolitano Stadium. The atmosphere on the broadcast sounded incredible. This is going to sound weird, but there are certain stadiums where you hear the roar from a goal, and it's got sort of a more guttural, lower, bassy sound to it. I tend to think the Premier League has got this kind of high pitch.
English crowds or English-speaking crowds are right, and then Spanish crowds. It's more of like an O or a goal noise.
We've just created a new Soccer 101 episode. You're welcome.
It's one of my favorite things. It's why I think Eastern European stadiums are so much more intimidating, because they all say goal or tor or whatever it is, and so it goes deeper. It's more guttural. It rules.
There we go. Well, I'm not crazy. Thank you for confirming that. It is awesome. It was a really great sound in there. Oh, well, okay. All right. The jury's out then. Fine. Yeah. All right. Any more on this game before we jog on? Everybody
just
happy?
That we've got maybe a 2-horse race now in the Liga, with Atleti being 4 points back, Barcelona holding a game in hand. So I'd kind of hope that the three of them would go the distance and would get a classic finale, but I am starting to get to the point where I'm struggling to envisage Atleti making up that ground, particularly when Barcelona, to Joe's point, I don't know if they are the best team in Europe, but they can turn a game in an instant. Like, Atleti thought they'd won this game at 2-0 up, and then 8 minutes later it was 2-2. And we've seen that a bunch of times from Barcelona this season, where they have these like 15-20 minute periods where they just blitz teams. So maybe they are going to win it all while being deeply flawed, and the science experiment will work.
Yeah, we will see. 10 games to go, as you mentioned, Graham. They are 4 points behind on 56 points. Are Atleti. Barcelona tied at the top with Real Madrid on 60 points, but Barcelona having a game in hand. Real Madrid keeping pace with a 2-1 win over Villarreal this weekend as well. Kylian Mbappe with a brace in that one. The other bit of news to report from Spain. I don't know if you saw in the La Liga DOS, the second division.
Segunda,
of course. Silly me. There were 3 red cards in 32 minutes between Albacete and Malaga. 2 for Albacete in 2 minutes, 1 for Malaga 5 minutes later. That sounded fun. We've got some more red card action coming up later in the show as well. Let's go to Italy, shall we, where the title race is a bit less tight there as well. There's now 6 points between the top 3 teams. Atalanta and Inter met this weekend. Inter with the 2-0 win in Bergamo. They moved 3 points clear at the top of Serie A there. Bad-tempered here. Let's get to the red card now. 81st minute when Ederson, Taylor, I don't know if you saw this. They got Ederson 2 yellow cards in the space of a couple of seconds for just chatting to the referee, being very stupid, it seemed. Chatting's a light way of saying it.
So, like dissent and then sarcastic applause. Sarcastic applause is the automatic yellow card, so there's your 2. And it is never smart. I understand. I definitely will chirp at a referee from time to time when I'm playing. I get it. You're never going to change their mind. And especially when maybe you're just straight up wrong. Because in this situation, I don't think there was a foul by Marcus Thuram. I don't think Atalanta were hard done by or should have felt aggrieved in that moment. And so the consternation and anger, I think, that resulted was confusing to me. Gasperini then also gets a red card for foul and abusive language and stepping on the pitch, I believe. So this is, to me, Atalanta sort of losing the plot a little bit and coming undone. And it's a thing that they do somewhat regularly against Inter Milan. Going back in history, Atalanta's last win against Inter, can anyone guess? Does anyone know off the top of their heads?
55 years ago.
Not quite that bad.
Right,
2018. November of 2018 is the last time Atalanta beat Inter. Since then, they've played 15 games, 10 wins for Inter, 5 draws, 28 goals for Inter, and 9 against, which is a good result for Inter. And I think it's also that Gasperini tries to do the same thing every single time. He tries to man mark. He tries to kind of throw the same wrench at Inter, and they seem more than capable of handling that wrench. And then when you get players sent off for silly reasons and unnecessary reasons at that, it's always going to put you into an even more precarious state.
Still not the best head loss by an Atalanta player that we've seen this season, Ryan. Do you remember we did that Champions League review a couple of weeks ago? Rafael Toloi, I don't know if Taylor and Joe saw this, but it's the most ridiculous red card I've ever seen in my life, where he tries to throw the ball at an opposition player, he falls over onto his face, then kind of like does a crawl towards the player, does a chest bump. Yeah, total head loss.
Pushes the referee out of the way to get to the player.
Yeah, pushes the referee out of the way. It was incredible. So as bad as this was by Ederson, still not as bad as Rafael Toloi.
Oh, it's elite. That's elite.
I also think, for what I was hoping this game would be, left a little bit disappointed, which is maybe what we sometimes say about Serie A, and I'm not trying to paint with the stereotypical brush, but it did feel to me like both of these teams wanted the result, but weren't fully committed to attacking play. And Atalanta, as the game goes on, start to commit more numbers. But there are moments in this game, like I screenshotted a few of them because I was just so flummoxed by it, where Atalanta would press high, would win the ball back high, and would then have situations in which they could attack with numbers, and yet everybody stayed back, or players were really hesitant to make sort of darting runs to facilitate more attacking play. So if you had, say, Atalanta winning out on the left side with two players providing pressure, they get the ball, you'd have two in the middle and then one out wide, all just sort of continuing to stroll forward. And it felt like the priority was don't concede anything, don't give away cheap opportunities, but take them where you can. But as a result, I think Inter were content to kind of sit off, especially once they get the lead, and make Atalanta do something, and it didn't feel like they were really capable of doing all that much. So it felt like a more defensive game from both teams, even though there were chances, and I think that's always going to play into Inter's hands in the end.
Yeah, indeed. Inter are top of Serie A at the moment, 64 points, 3 points ahead of Napoli, and Atlanta down in 58 as well. So we had an opportunity this weekend where all three top teams could have been level on points, but results, they did not fall this way, unfortunately, for the neutral fan. Venezia 0, Napoli 0, with Napoli just dropping points. They're getting a point there. In Venice, they had 15 shots on goal against Venezia, who are second bottom, by the way. Napoli have drawn 5 of their last 7 league games. Very Juventus behaviour from them. Speaking of Juventus, a 3-0 loss at Fiorentina for them. Bitter rivals, these two, of course. They've had a few instances of league titles and such over the few years, and also some transfer stuff that's gone on between them. Roberto Baggio being one of the most prominent examples. Gudmundsson's goal for the third goal was an absolute banger, if you haven't seen it, by the way, listener. And did anyone see the tifo?
I did.
Oh, yeah. The tifo, giant letters across behind one of the goals. Juve merda, which I don't really need to...
they backed up.
Yeah, it's true.
Like,
they proved it.
Fair play. You really did show them.
Yeah, that's very true indeed. Very true. That was the nominative determinism of tifo at its finest there from the Fiorentina fans. One other game in Serie A to mention: Milan with a 2-1 win over Como. Christian Pulisic scoring Milan's equaliser after Como went ahead here. Lovely run, turn and shot on his weaker foot, I think, from Pulisic there from a tight angle, as well. Tiana Reinders getting the winner for Milan in this one. And Dele Alli made his Como debut.
Oh dear.
How did it go, Graham? How did it go?
It did not go well. He got sent off after 8 minutes, which was not the return I'd imagine he dreamed of. I thought it was a little bit. I don't know. Maybe my own personal feelings towards Dele. I wish him well. I hope he's able to recover something of his old form. So maybe my personal opinions on him are colouring this, but I thought it was a little bit harsh. And Kyle Walker certainly thought it was a little bit harsh, who tried to convince the referee, obviously on the opposition team, tried to convince the referee not to send him off, but he didn't. He ignored Kyle Walker and just did it anyway.
Kyle Walker's a better friend than I am, man. I'd be like, no, that's definitely a red. Let's move this thing along. That's wild. I've never seen anything like that before.
Kyle Walker's a better friend. Talk to his wife.
Well,
anyway,
depends who you ask.
Yeah, let's not go there. But Dele Alli published a WhatsApp chat that he had with Ruben Loftus-Cheek, the recipient of his foul. Obviously, they were rivals back in the Premier League days as well. I didn't even know the VR check was for me, said Ali in this WhatsApp. And Ruben Loftus-Cheek replied, I stayed down because I was blowing, i.e. I was out of breath. He'd been on the field for 12 minutes at that point. Very cool.
That rules. That's so good.
They were having that chat afterwards. Is wonderful.
I feel seen by Ruben Loftus-Cheek.
Oh, yeah, that's so funny.
To be fair, you're probably most gassed when you're about 10 minutes into a game, then you find your rhythm. So maybe let's give him the benefit of the doubt for that one.
All right,
10 minutes, try like 4 minutes into a game.
Jogging onto the pitch. Woof. We are just cruising through nap time today. All right.
All right, and in the spirit of nap time, let's take a quick break and come back with Germany and MLS. Join us then. Total Soccer Show, welcome back to our weekend review. Let's turn our attention to the Bundesliga, shall we? At the top, Bayern with a 1-1 draw with Union Berlin. Union getting a late goal there due to a moment of uncertainty from Jonas You Are Big. That is his name. on this here podcast from now on. The Manuel Neuer regen. Bayern still very much in the driving seat, of course, for their 34th league title. Bayer Leverkusen with a 4-3 win at Stuttgart as well. Leverkusen were 3-1 down just after the hour in this one. A very good fight back for them. Patrick Schick with the 95th minute winner for Leverkusen, keeping them in the fight. Let's go to RB Leipzig 2. Borussia Dortmund 0. Niko Kovac, Taylor, saying his side could have scored 3 or 4 goals in this one. They didn't, though, did they?
They did not. XG would back that up. I think they had an XG over 3 expected goals, 66% possession, 25 shots, 12 corners, 0 goals. They hit the woodwork a number of times. They missed genuine sitters in this game. Joe, there were some in there. I know how you feel about it. I'm still going to say they should have done better. There are some bad misses in this game, and you have to imagine Niko Kovac is like whatever Ruben Amorim like drinks after a game to calm his nerves and soothe his frustrations.
Absinthe.
I hope he passed along that recommendation to Niko Kovac, because man, Dortmund could have won this game, could have done better. I'm cruising right past all of your mean comments because they hurt my soul. But I think Dortmund supporters' souls might be a little bit hurt by this one, because they could have and should have won this game, which is doing a disservice to Leipzig, who I thought were excellent, and I thought played the exact game they needed to play. Their press was really effective. The way they would close off half and then 3/4 of the pitch on occasion and make life really difficult for Dortmund, who oftentimes had to go long and then would press themselves. And I thought that was a really interesting back and forth, and how much they were just trying to be like, no, you have the ball so I can win it off you. But Leipzig also really effective with their possession, with the way they would move the ball. Benjamin Sesko is so good back to goal in holding up play, but then also making really smart runs in behind and finding smart final balls. Xavi Simons pulling strings in the midfield and drawing fouls, drawing contact, but also riding challenges and making things happen for Leipzig. They were an excellent team on the day. It just should have been a closer game. Dortmund hitting the woodwork multiple times. Leipzig did, I think, as well at least once. But I could not get over how much I thought Dortmund could have done in this game and how much they weren't able to then rise to the occasion. I think is pretty representative for a team that are presently 11th in the table, 35 points. So just 27 points off of the title leaders, Bayern Munich.
I only saw the highlights of this game, Taylor, but the Luis Openda goal is one of the goals of the weekend. Anytime, so it's flush on the volley, on the full volley, but anytime you send the ball back where it came from, the aesthetics of that are just unrivaled.
Yeah,
incredible goal.
For people who haven't seen it, it's from a corner. It's taken long to the back post. He is unmarked, but still has to do really, really well to hit the kind of in-step volley. Takes it perfectly, as Graham said, puts it back across frame into the side netting. It's a lovely goal. And the first goal is also a nice finish by Xavi Simons after sort of a loose ball and then a scrum, and then there's a kind of a ball spills free and he finishes it well. But again, that's Leipzig taking their chances and making the most of the opportunities they're given, and Dortmund doing the opposite. Again, Dortmund had individual performers that I thought were really good. Serhou Guirassy connects play really well, conducts attacking play really, really well, played in some really nice passes. Julian Brandt had some really nice runs and some really good sort of threatening dribbles. I forget how big and strong he is. He is, I guess, in the Gio Reyna category in more than one way. But at the end of the day, it's Leipzig getting the points they needed and Dortmund doing the opposite of that.
Yeah, Dortmund, as you say, Taylor, way down in 11th. They're well off the pace of getting back into European soccer next season. They were in the Champions League final last year.
Oof.
How's this happened? This is crazy.
Barcelona are going to beat them by 8 goals. That's my prediction right now.
In one game or over the two?
Nah, you take your pick. I'm good.
One game, 50 minutes.
Yeah. Will 6 of those 8 goals be from outside the box by Rafinha and Lamine?
Yeah, and Barcelona will be 3-0 down.
Yeah.
There we go. Dortmund 11th, Leipzig up in 5th, though, doing much better, of course, in East Germany. Leipzig. One more league to turn our attention to for this here weekend review. Let's go to Major League Soccer. The big one, Joe, on Sunday night. I almost said Atletico. Atlanta United, with a 2-1 home defeat at the hands of Inter Miami. Latilath with the opener cancelled out by Leo Messi. And then the winner, one of those very slow looping headers that finds its way in.
Yeah, a lot of interesting headers this weekend across the board. This game was the Miami revenge game. This is maybe the match that I was most looking forward to in the first month or so of the season, where, to wind back the clock to last, I guess, November it would have been, Atlanta United upset Inter Miami in the biggest upset in MLS playoff history. There was a 34-point gap between those two teams. and Atlanta United said, yeah, we're good, and they snuck past Messi and Miami last year and really finished their season in every respect, but also decidedly ruled that season for Miami a failure because they broke the MLS regular season points record but flopped in every single knockout competition they played. As it turns out, Lionel Messi does not really like to lose, and there's something fitting here for me about it's Bartosz Slis scoring the game-winning, series-deciding goal last November for Atlanta United, and it's Bartosz Slis that Lionel Messi all of a sudden decides to actually care and counterpress for a second, and he sprints like a projected missile to go pick the ball off of Bartosz Slis just outside of Atlanta United's box, and then just bobs and weaves his way through and chips Brad Guzan, and it is a filthy goal. It's a filthy finish. I honestly do not know if it's a coincidence that Messi decides to sprint right at Slis.
He ran 5 miles in this game, apparently, I read, which is his most in an MLS match.
When was the last time he actually pressed like he did for that goal? I can't remember.
It genuinely does not happen a lot. It's not totally unheard of, but there's a reason why Miami end up sitting back in a 4-4-2 block with Messi and Suarez just kind of at the top, mostly standing around, right? This doesn't happen a lot, and Messi was on it in a lot of this game. I thought he was really, really good, which is no surprise because he's Lionel Messi. Atlanta United, to their credit, did a great job, and Miguel Almiron did a great job of exploiting Miami's defensive frailties really early on, where Almiron drops, he pulls Jordi Alba out of his left back position, and then Almiron plays this ball over the top to Brooks Lennon, and Lennon finds Emmanuel Latelat for that goal in the 11th minute. It's a great goal, and Brooks Lennon is back in this team. That Atlanta did a lot of good stuff in this game. Miami, though, are just so unbelievably hard to stop when they have the ball. You cannot afford to make mistakes like the one that Slis makes in this game. But overall, it's a reminder that Miami, they are, 8 games through the season. They have not lost a single game so far across all competitions. They look good, and they look less error-prone than they did last year. There's still a lot of dust to settle, not just for Miami, but across MLS and across Champions Cup as well. But, man, this game was fun for all of the narrative reasons, and then also for the actual on-field stuff, too.
Yeah, the players that Miami have added in the offseason, Allende, Segovia, have my fear for this team was look at the players they've lost, they'll be weaker. Well, actually, they kind of look stronger there. But I love this game because it felt like MLS at its biggest and most important and most eye-catching, where you've got Messi and Suarez in that stadium with a big crowd, and you've got the Guzan duel against Messi going back to the playoffs, and on the Atlanta side of things, you've got the most expensive player in the league, and you've got Miguel Almiron, and I loved their first goal, and that Brooks Lennon-Latte Lath connection I think is going to be really fruitful over the course of the season. They have almost an identical goal disallowed for a marginal offsides when it's 1-0, so even though Atlanta lose this game, and Inter Miami were the stronger team on balance, there was things to be encouraged by from Atlanta point of view, because there's the start of the season, while they win that opening game on opening weekend, their start has been a little bit inconsistent.
Yeah. There is one perfect team remaining in Major League Soccer. That is Vancouver with the 1-0 win at Dallas this weekend as well, Joe.
Yeah, just like we all predicted, the Vancouver Whitecaps going 8 games unbeaten and 4 games perfect in league play. They went down to Texas and just smacked FC Dallas. They weren't creating chance after chance after chance, and that's in part because Ryan Gauld is currently out injured. He'll be back in a few weeks' time. But yeah, Graham is sad about that. I'm sad about that. Vancouver fans are sad about that. But the Caps, this is them playing on, I think, 2 full days of rest, only 2 full days of rest, after going down to Mexico and beating Sergio Ramos and Monterrey across 2 legs. They ended up winning that on aggregate with the tiebreaker there. They come off of that game, and they travel on the road to Frisco, Texas, and they control this game. Jesper Sorensen, new manager, Danish coach, has really impressed me in a lot of ways with how he set up this team, and a lot of players are finding themselves within his 4-3-3 setup. Pedro Vite looks really, really good. Brian White has earned himself a USMNT look, which we talked about last week, off of some of his play this year, but also, of course, in years past as well, and back in January camp. But this Whitecaps team, missing probably 3 starters across the board, still went out there and controlled the entirety of proceedings in Dallas. They look really good. Like, Sorensen looks legit as far as, a manager who can squeeze a little bit more out of his team goes. And a lot of the players are familiar faces who are finding a new level in their game. I've been so impressed by Vancouver so far this season, and also impressed by Sorensen overall in this match, and really what we've seen across the season so far. Jesper Sorensen, in his post-game press conference, pulled out one of the all-time quotes in MLS post-game manager press conference history. He said, "Since we're in Dallas, let me say, how about them Whitecaps? I kid you not. This is entirely real. He pulled a Jimmy Johnson, and it made me so happy. I could not believe my eyes or my ears. It's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah, for him to know that reference really, really got me. Well played, Jesper Sorensen. You have my respect.
It's kind of a shot in multiple ways because it's also harkens to like the last time that somebody like said that with true sentiment about the Cowboys. It's been a little bit of a time, so maybe that's also a double shot.
Wow.
So good.
We will, of course, listen and be covering Major League Soccer in great detail on the feed on Tuesday. But Joe, before we head out, any more you want to highlight for MLS, or should we?
Yeah, I know Graham wanted to do a Diego Luna bit, and I feel like I get lots of chances to do Diego Luna bits. So Graham, do you want to do it?
Yeah, very quickly. So RSL, they beat Houston Dynamo away from home 2-1. Just really exciting to see Diego Luna taking a grip of a game like this. Also, Jack McGlynn on the other side in the battle of the future USMNT stars, and he gets an assist from a free kick in this game. But Luna was the star man. He scores the winner. He creates the opener with some classic Diego Luna play where he kind of wriggles through a couple tackles, gets into the half space, plays a ball in behind. So I really hope he gets some game time on Thursday. I don't think he'll start. I don't think Poch is going to drop him into the lineup. But I hope we get some evidence of how he can potentially evolve this team as a substitute coming off the bench, because I really love watching him when he's playing like this. And he seems to have taken a step up this season. That RSL team is now his team.
There we go. Good stuff. Are they inspired by the grid-shaped kit, do we think?
That had to be it. I think that was the first time they've worn it this season. I can't recall seeing it in another game. So, it's up there as one of the best kits. As inspired by the...
Yeah, I'm not
the Discord wasn't happy, were they?
So
that
mad.
lasted for a few days.
They got so mad. Yeah.
Wait, what? I totally missed all of this.
When we talked about the grid-inspired kit, there were people in the Discord who said, actually... is pretty unique to Salt Lake.
I would never disrespect the grid of Salt Lake. So I didn't. I mean,
the great grid.
The great grid.
It's a nationwide leading grid, of course. It's just I think the supposition was it's not the only city in the United States that has a grid system for its.
They've got the best grid, Ryan.
They've got the best grid. I know, and a great kit. It's a great kit too.
It is a great kit.
Yeah, very good. Very good indeed. As mentioned, more.
Keeping my mouth closed.
Wise words or lack thereof. Thank you very much, Taylor. More MLS coming on.
Gotta focus on that frog sex in the background if I'm not going to be talking.
We need to work on silencing that out of your track when we come to edit this podcast. Very good. More weekend review coming to the extra feed as noted. Patreon.com/Total Soccer Show if you would like to support us via that medium. Thank you to everybody who does. But for now, Taylor Rockwell, thank you very much indeed. I can just about hear you over the naturous.
Yeah, I can just about hear what's going to go into the out-of-context channel of the Discord. I don't do that on purpose, but after the fact, I'm like, well, that's definitely going in there, and that was one of those moments. I've had a few of those lately. Thank you, Ryan.
All right. Graham Rutherford, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ryan Bailey. Ribbit.
And Joe Lowry, a pleasure as always. My good man.
Thanks, Ryan.
No frog sound from you?
It got louder.
Yeah, I was going to do it, but Graham did it first. So.
Yes, very good. Listener, thank you very much for joining us on this Weekend Review episode. We'll be back on the feed very shortly, but for now, bye!